Welcome to another edition of Your Impact Attack. That's right, it's your Impact Attack. Still yours. We're just borrowing it. Who is we? I'm Jamie the Vet Williams, and with me, as always, my tag team partner, Brandon. Here comes the tag. Boom! Oh, the crowd goes wild. What's up, Brandon?
What is up? Not much. Another edition of Impact in the books, but what is going on in the wrestling world today?
Man, wrestling world today. You know, everybody's talking about this backlash that took place in Puerto Rico. Did you happen to catch any of this or any clips or any stuff or news or people like Mark Henry saying Zelina Vega should have won the title or anything? anything? Catch up with any of this?
Nah, I didn't. I did read. The only thing I read is that it was a great show. The fans there had a great time. And that's really, at the end of the day, it's all that matters. The people who watched it enjoyed it. And yeah, they did a great job.
That is the most important thing. I think the crowd was the star of the show. The crowd was a 10 out of 10. The WWE actually knowing how to work with that crowd and taking the full advantage of it, probably about a 5 out of 10. Because you could see that. This is something interesting that, you hear about when you talk about wrestling over the years and in parts of the globe that, there's different styles. We say, oh, we don't want to work this style, right? So what that usually means is the different areas of the world expect and enjoy different things to different degrees. So Puerto Rico's always been, a blood and guts kick punch territory, right? And the crowd really gets into like the fighting and the violence that can erupt in wrestling, right? So even during the whole backlash thing, every time somebody gets like punched, or something, or like a big punch or kick or some big strike thing, you can hear the crowd, go wah, like literally they all go wah every time somebody gets hit. And you could see like that the wrestlers didn't really know how to like capitalize on the rhythm of that. You do like like Rip would always talk about the rhythm. Rip Rogers would talk about the rhythm of a comeback, say. So like when a babyface is making that comeback, it's supposed to be that 1, 2, 3, oh, and 4. So that could be like three bumps, and then like a back body drop. It could be like 3 punches and like a huge punch. It could be whatever it is, but there's a certain rhythm to it. And Puerto Rico really tells you what the rhythm is, and they act it out too. So you could see people like, you could see the crowd doing their part, and WWE is not giving them that rhythm. It'll just be like, wah wah, and then a cutoff, or, they'll never let things get going and stuff. So it just, more of the pre-planned bullshit and not really knowing how to work was something that I really noticed watching that. But yeah, before we get too far into the backlash talk, while you're munching down, I'll go and take a look at the live chat. I'll do this role reversal for a change. We got we got Buckshot Kid with the first comment, and then who do we have with the actual first comment?
It actually was Buckshot Kid, 9:19 a.m. Good morning, all.
Yeah, and I told him this morning that doesn't count. You got to have the first comment when the show goes live. So who had that? Did he make it?
See that is actually tough. I'm not really sure when I actually hit the live button. That might have been. It could have been anyone from Lab Rat to Buckshot. Yeah, either Lab Rat or Buckshot.
All right. Well, we'll just give it to him. We'll give it to him this time because I already gave him a pre-warning, so he knows what the real first comment is when we first go live. So, but yeah, Lab Rat Chris Winland, Impact's better than AEW. Lizbeth's here. Jerome's here. And we got Javi Uchiha. And yeah, that's it for now, but we'll see. We'll see. Buckshot Kid says that's a really big pot brownie. Oh, okay. All right. So there you go. We know he's alive. Yeah, so more on Backlash. It was like a lot of let's see, what do we have? It seemed like a shorter card, a simpler card. And I'm trying the crowd that they started with the women's championship match between Io and Bianca, and the crowd really wanted Io to win. So that they didn't really care that she was supposed to be a heel or whatever, and just cheering for her. Kind of disappointed that Bianca won. I guess they were, but whatever. What else happened? Yeah, the Omos and Seth Rollins. You know, this is one of those things where you have this giant that you don't know what to do with. You have Seth Rollins in here, which you kind of know what to do with, but you know, I guess they figure Seth Rollins could get anything over, so they try to put him in this match for some reason. I really don't know how this match came about. Could be a lot of reasons. Maybe Seth Rollins said, "Give me the giant." I don't know. What are you about to say?
It sounds like something like put him with Rollins, he can pull a good match out of him.
Yeah, which somebody pulling a good match out of Omos should not be anybody's concern right at this moment. At this moment, you gotta ask yourself, what do you really plan to do with this guy? You know, like what?
They should have never split him off from AJ.
No, they shouldn't. And they just traded him to MVP. Really, is all that really ended up happening. So, but what ends up happening is they have a match, and Seth Rollins goes over. So it's like, okay, this would be the one opportunity where you could get a believable win for Omos. It should not have even lasted that long. It should have been about 2 minutes, and Omos should have killed him. And then it's perfect because Omos is like, okay, now I'm a giant. I'm a credible threat again because I beat a top guy. Seth Rollins could come out on Monday Night Raw tonight and someone can ask him about it and he'll be like, can't win them all. You know, like it doesn't matter to him. He wouldn't care. It's like, yeah, who wouldn't lose to this guy? It doesn't matter. Anyways, I'm going to win that, participation trophy title now. So I don't, that seemed like a no-brainer. They didn't do it. What else? Zelina came out. The crowd was very happy to see Zelina and her Puerto Rican flag cape thing that she wore and all dressed out in the red, white, and blue and all this stuff. And everybody seemed to be very happy. But however, I could tell just from the audience that there was quite a few people that in that audience that were just as impressed and happy that Rhea Ripley was there as they were that Zelina, who's almost never on television and certainly never having matches and beating people, was there. So they're cheering for the flag. They don't really care about her. And there was a contingent of Rhea Ripley fans when her name got announced and they held up the belt and everything like that. It's like, yeah,
this really could have been something if they built to it and could have had a meaningful title change. Even if it was just a quick little feel-good moment, flip it back to Rhea. The moment is what matters, and they could have created something, but again, the only real build to it is they're on opposing factions and they're women.
That's it. It was just like, hey, you have this heritage, you're getting a title shot. I don't know if she's ever been to Puerto Rico before, but she's Puerto Rican, so she can have a title match. And that's not how you should do it. You should have known that you had, because it's not like they booked this building 2 weeks in advance. They had this planned months, if not years in advance. So you could have gotten ready to do something to the point where, she was believably built. But she still got heat from the whole Twitch thing and her husband and all this other stuff. So it's like, here's some Here's some PR for PR. How about that? Like that's basically what it is. It's like, yeah, look what we're doing. We got a hometown hero sort of up against, our new champion that we just crowned, and we just had her beat Charlotte to anoint her as the new queen of WWE. And yeah, she's going to lose to some little girl in a couple of weeks. I don't think anybody really. I saw one of the headlines, skimming through the headlines, of like, Mark Henry thinks that Zelina Vega should have won the championship. And it's like, well, Mark Henry should know that she never had a chance of winning that championship. If he's any kind of industry veteran, he should really know. And nor should she. I mean, that's not, it's the same thing people were saying about Sami Zayn. Oh, Sami Zayn should have won the title. No, Sami Zayn shouldn't have won the title. However, if they were just going to fuck Cody anyway, yeah, why not? Who cares? Might as well have had Sammy win the title, because you clearly don't care about your own long-term plans. So, it was what it was. Rhea beat her. No one was surprised. Then for some inexplicable reason, they decided to put the Bad Bunny match on. Like, first of all, this was like the main angle going into your show, and you don't close with it. This should be like rudimentary 101 level booking of, whatever's your draw and whatever's your top act or whatever. If you can't get the people higher than this, then that needs to go at the end, right? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, but apparently they didn't get it. So you have all this thing where, you got all this hype. Bad Bunny comes out to the reaction. Like, it's basically this is what people want. Everybody knows every word of his theme song, which is Chambea, which is the song that probably put him on the map when they had that music video with Ric Flair and stuff all those years ago. So everybody's singing along with it. And, and then they have this match like right in the middle. So you're just like, what? Like, how are they expected to follow this? Why would you want, furthermore, if you thought two other matches were more important than this, why would you want them to follow that? Right? Like, why would you want them to get buried in this? Even though they still would get kind of good reactions, but considering everything that happened, considering the fact that it's a 6-man tag team match with nothing on the line, I really don't feel like that should have followed it. And then the Cody versus Brock match, again, with nothing on the line, that's not a main event. I'm sorry. And I'm sure Brock was very mad that he had to sit through the whole show. So, yeah. That was very puzzling. A lot of praise for Bad Bunny, in terms of like what he's able to do as a non-wrestler or a but all I saw was a guy that, this is the perfect example of another thing that Rip Rogers always used to say, which is you could teach a chimp to wrestle. I'm not trying to disparage Bad Bunny and call him a chimp or anything, but I'm just saying, like, you can definitely see, when you got all these people online saying, oh, he's better than 85% or 90% of the roster. Don't disrespect 90% of the roster like that. This guy almost broke his neck doing a sliced bread with Damian Priest, which is just as much Damian Priest's fault for not knowing how to fucking do the move as it was for Bad Bunny's. What if he had been crippled on that? Then what are you going to do? How are you going to take responsibility for that? But even with that match, which was so hyped up and the crowd was going to be into every single thing that they were doing, then they had like some run-ins with, they had Carlito, right, do a run-in, and Savio Vega did a run-in, but go ahead.
I always saw Carlito as one of the most like missed potential like draws they could have had. I mean, 05, 06, that dude had so much charisma and upside.
Yeah, I remember back then when Carlito and Masters came in. I was like, oh, okay, here's a couple of fresh faces that will really do some stuff, and then it started out hot and just fizzled out quickly because you had certain people that were still trying to in their prime, so to speak, and just didn't want those guys to outshine them. So there you go, we get what we get. But yeah, so Carlito comes out and Savio Vega comes out. Now here's where they fucked it up. Like it didn't end up mattering because everybody was happy. But here's how you could have done it even better than the way they did it. So, they had, first of all, they showed Savio Vega earlier in the night, which that was a huge mistake. They showed him backstage, like, talking to Bad Bunny and whatever it was they showed him, right? So yeah. If you do that, you're like, okay, well, I guess nothing's coming. I guess nothing's happening, right? But that would have been better if they maybe didn't show that, especially since they planned the run-in.
Yeah, Savio Vega as a surprise in Puerto Rico would have been way more effective. If the crowd didn't know he was coming and he hits the ring, place would have exploded.
Right. So they didn't show Carlito, to their credit. But anyway, as you can imagine, it's a street fight. So Judgment Day, they wait until the scripted time to get involved rather than, obviously what do we always say when we're talking about impacts of street fights and factions and stuff like that? It's like, what, if let's say, for example, the design is scheduled for a street fight, like with Cody Deaner or somebody against whoever, and then why wouldn't Angels and Khan just come out and just be 3-on-1 right away? It's a street fight. What is stopping you? Why waste time? Why give them a chance to have a fair fight? Just beat the shit out of them, right? We always say that. So, of course, same thing happens here. Judgment Day's got to get involved at a point in the match because, whatever. So that's where... So when Carlito runs in, that's a surprise. But he's still got his music from 2005, which is not the hypest music, to hit. Like when you start, like you see some guy run into the ring and it's like, dun, 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 dun. It's not really like so that right there is fucked up. They should have just had him run in with no music, right? Because everybody will recognize his afro anyway. So, come on. And then, so they do that. And then they have, Savio come out, right? And he comes out and then he stands there for an uncomfortably long time in the aisleway. So now we've got the guy I just said, Carlito on one side. So Finn and Dominic are like sandwiched in the aisleway between, Savio Vega on one side, and you got Carlito on the other side, and they're both like, we're stuck here. And then Savio Vega he calls out for somebody to come out, and it's like the LWO. So all these guys that are like the least over guys in this entire match come out. That is not how you should have done that. What you should have done, if you wanted to, you should have had the LWO come out and call Savio out. That's how you do it to get the pop. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
You don't have the over guy come out and call out the non-over guys and expect that gets the pop. But that's just more of the WWE not being in touch with anything that's going on, right? So they even when they had something that it was so unfuck-upable that the crowd was not going to shit on it, but they still didn't get the full potential out of it. So I think that's really just that right there. That one little segment was a microcosm of this entire event. Like you had something that was an easy home run, and you basically got like a stand-up double out of it because, and you're going to glad hand yourself now and talk about how successful it was, and you're going to have people talking about how great an event of Backlash was and all this other stuff. And it's like, yeah, but could have done more with it. It's my opinion. And then you have what was the other two? Like I said, the 6-man match, where their whole angle is like is Solo Sikoa gonna turn on his brothers? Like, oh my goodness.
I like the way the story's been built. Jay's more likely to turn on them.
Right, which is what they're trying to play into. Like, it's really more like, is Jay gonna get the spike from his, from Solo, right? So you got the younger brother in the trio of brothers, and you've got him as like, the guy that's gonna bring the hammer down on one of his older brothers, which, that's not necessarily the normal family dynamic, right? But so those guys had a match, and it was fine, and it the people were into it, but they've just got done seeing Bad Bunny and all this other stuff, so it's like, okay, we just saw Bad Bunny, Carlito, and TNT make his, come out and get their flowers in this one match, and then you're gonna be like, oh, and here's a 6-man. So even though it's a great 6-man, maybe not the best for this point, right? Not to follow your highest point. And then you got Cody and Brock in the main event slot, and it's exactly what you'd imagine it'd be like. And as I was watching it, which obviously wasn't live, but I was watching it, and I'm like Cody comes out, does his whole entrance, and then Brock comes out and he's doing his entrance, and he's like, and I'm just like, Cody, like literally, I'm by myself watching this, no one around, and I'm just watching. I'm like, Cody, if you don't jump on this motherfucker right now and start beating the shit out of him, then you fucked up. And sure enough, he dives out the ring on Brock and starts, gets that jump start and starts kicking his ass. I was like, all right, well, at least he knows that much. And then of course, at one point Brock Lesnar's like, enough of this, and starts suplexing him, all this other stuff. They get the, they do the spot where they expose the buckle. Brock Lesnar takes a buckle in the face, bleeds. Look like a hard way, but I don't know. It was tough because I saw him bleed instantly after he hit that. After he hit that steel buckle, and I'm like, okay, well, he's not a big enough mark that he would just actually bust himself open on the turnbuckle. Also, you couldn't guarantee that hitting that is just going to bust your head open either. Like, it's, what if you didn't, right? What if you just thunk and then hit your head and it doesn't bleed? So I don't know. I think he must have done something at some point, but I didn't catch it, and I ran it back to right before he did it, and I didn't see any blood coming out yet. So I don't know. It's possible he bladed at some point before that, but I didn't catch it. Anyway, yeah, there was blood all over the place. And what else? Yeah, then they did one of those finish where I think the finish was, because I was losing interest, and they had a finish. I think the finish was, if I remember correctly, Brock had the Kimura on Cody, and Cody sort of like rolled him and pinned him. So it's like one of those like Bret Hart Piper 92 type finishes where you pin the guy that's trying to make you submit, and then that's it. And I'm just like, there was a spot where after Brock hit the buckle, Cody hit 2 like crossroads. I just would have took it home after that, because you're still beating Brock. What's the difference? You don't have to protect him. And also, if you go back to what I was saying earlier, in terms of like, the booking and the transitive properties and the vet math, it should be, well, Seth could beat Brock in 5 minutes. Cody with 2 arms, Cody with 1 arm could beat Seth. So Cody with 2 arms should be able to beat Brock in 2.5 minutes, right? Like, with full use of both of his arms. But it took a lot longer than 2.5 minutes, and he still didn't like just get a clean, decisive pin. It was left up in the air to try to protect Brock, which I'm like, what are we trying to protect Brock for? You've already jobbed him out. He's basically almost Omos at this point. You've only used Brock for the past several years to lose to other people that you want to look good. He's barely beaten anybody in this time, because it's usually him versus Roman Reigns, and they kept putting Roman Reigns over. So, I don't know. Brock's not he doesn't seem to be the threat that he once was, but every time he comes out there and looks impressive, you're like, oh, I see, yes, Brock Lesnar, and then he loses. So it's like, I don't know. Do we really need to protect him at this point? You had a good thing where he busted his face open and Cody hit the finish on him 2 times, and that wasn't enough to beat him. I think that's as good a time as any to get a clean pin on Brock Lesnar after a buckle, an exposed buckle shot. But that's just me. So overall, I gave the show a yawn out of 10. But a lot of other people seem happy with it, and like you said, isn't that the most important thing at the end of the day?
Yep. Send your crowd home happy and they want to come back and see you again.
Yep. Well, whenever they go back to Puerto Rico, they'll be very happy to see them. And maybe they'll get some of those other little details right. But yeah. Well, anything else before we jump into this episode of Impact?
Now let's get to it.
Let's get to it. So we, on this episode, which took place on May, what was it? 4th?
May the 4th be with you.
All right. So everybody was watching Star Wars movies, and then they turned on Impact just to wash the taste of those non-George Lucas sequels out of their mouth, I guess.
How is there not any Star Wars theme stuff on this episode?
Because I don't know. Do they ever have any Star Wars themed stuff in wrestling?
No, but you would think like if anybody was doing it, it'd either be Impact or AEW. Well, they were the only, or Impact was the ones that was airing on the 4th, so you'd think they would do it.
Yeah.
Or something.
I can see why AEW wouldn't do it, because that's a competing network that owns all that other stuff. But yeah, why not? Yeah, so we get a recap of everything that was going on, and then at the top of the show, we tease that Trinity's here. Trinity's going to make her debut tonight with a live mic, which she's not known for like pipe bombs. So, I guess I just thought it was funny how they were hyping that aspect of it. Like, they should have just not said what she was doing at all. They should have just said, she's here, and then that's it. But they definitely made sure that you knew and you were going to stay tuned, right?
Yeah, like the live mic part, they kept hyping up. Like, when has she ever been known to be dangerous with a live mic?
Well, yeah, well, in one aspect maybe, but not the aspect you think. Yeah. But yeah, so they do that, and then they go right into a cold match, like with no entrances. Which is Uemura and Gujar teaming up to face Moose and Myers. So, if you rob me of a Moose entrance, like, that upsets me a little bit. I feel like I should be grateful, but then again, should you be grateful for things that you should be getting? Like, I should be getting a Moose match, and I should be getting a full entrance. So, I'm not just going to count my blessings just because he's there. I want the full experiences. So that sucked, but it definitely felt like, I don't know, did the announcing feel like voiced over to you here?
Yeah, it did.
And I saw in the show they were clearly there. Like, they were at ringside, at least at certain points. So maybe for this part of the taping they weren't there. And then later they made, because they made sure not to get him on camera during this part, I guess. And then later on you could kind of see him in the background, but it definitely felt voiced over, right? So you did notice that, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird. All
right. Well, anyway, they had a normal match. I say normal because nothing crazy happened. It was just a fine tag match that you could see anywhere and, be pleased with it. They didn't do anything too crazy. And Moose picks up a rare win. So for a rare appearance, an even rarer win for Moose, as he beats Gujar with the spear. It shows him how it's really done. You don't even need to climb up to the second buckle to hit a spear on somebody. and Moose and Myers get that victory. So I'm not really sold on this pairing of, these guys that just, it's like, oh yeah, we don't have anything for you, Moose, so now you're stuck with this fucking guy. That's what it feels like, because it seems like the character of Moose before all this would not be that interested in teaming up with a guy long term, and yet here we are just doing it just because. So that we were never given at least a kayfabe reason why he would stick around with Myers. It's just, yep, here we're just doing this now, right?
Yep. And wasn't it to take care of Joe Hendry? Now what's going on with him? He's doing something else with Dango.
Yeah, they just moved on. Just moved on from that. We're not doing what we started out to do, and then we're just going to be friends, I guess. So there you go. So that was that's weird. So any other thoughts on this particular match, or anything that you noticed, or any other, if you'd like to take this time to just appreciate Moose in any fashion that you feel appropriate? I'd like to hand the floor over to you.
No, it just felt like this was Moose appreciation, just this whole thing, which I can appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
But give us an entrance, too. If you're going to really give us appreciation, give us the entrance, too.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure the crowd got an entrance. The live crowd must have, so why didn't you just turn the camera on and film it? Even if he's the only one that gets an entrance. Like, we start with the other three guys in the ring, and then it's Moose's, Moose comes out. That's fine. I'll take that. So, Anyway.
And he's the prettiest spear in wrestling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is, this is what a Moose can do. So, it would behoove you see what I did there? Because a moose has a hoof, to really maximize your potential here of this talent. All right, we got the roving reporter Gia. She's backstage as she finds the what I will dub, I guess from here on. See if you like this one, Brandon. The Champagne Army. How about that?
I like it.
All right. So of course that would be Burt Macklin and Champagne Singh and Mahabali Shira. And she's doing her job, and she's asking them about the alliance between them. And, Macklin's like, well, why wouldn't I get back up? I got a target on my back now, so it's only smart. And then as they're getting ready to leave, Singh gives Gia a cash tip, I guess. Like she's some sort of a waitress or something. I don't know. Valet parking. I don't know. So I like that. That was kind of funny.
No, the dude's committing to the bit.
Yep. Yeah. Any thoughts on this?
I thought it was really weak logic to tie them together. Like, why wasn't there like more build up or just something leading up to this instead of just like it was more like felt like he just pulled two names out of a hat and said, all right, throw these two guys together with Macklin, so we're not doing anything with them.
Yeah. Yeah, like as the champion, which you'd be the guy, right, in the company, what about these two guys would make you think that this is the most suitable like protection for you? Like one of these guys is clearly like doing a comedy gimmick and not that interested, which we'll talk about later. And Shira hasn't won a match ever. So I don't know that wouldn't be my first picks for mercenaries, if you know what I mean.
Yep. If they're me, I'm going for Goldberg 98.
Oh yeah, dude. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Those guys they're not gonna lay down for anybody, so I'd definitely go after them. Look, I know we had our differences in the past, but you don't take no L's, so I want you on my side. Yeah. All right. So then we get a recap about the tuft of hair, and then we go to Detective Dango with his board with the yarn and everything. I thought Lisbeth must like this. There's all kinds of yarn all over the place here. And then Joe Hendry appears. He's got a magnifying glass. Dango has the Sherlock Holmes hat. And they got a bunch of pictures on this board, which are funny Easter eggs if you're actually looking for them. There's like a picture of Tyler Breeze off to the side.
It says Dirty Cop.
Yeah, Dirty Cop with a question mark. And then you got like, you have, who was that? Yeah, Tyson Tonko's off to the side. You really have to watch this whole thing. Like, if you didn't see this, just go to their I don't know if they have the clip of this on their YouTube channel or whatever, but it's worth it just to see this one part, because I can't recap it accurately for the way they perform it. Like, they're very funny with their comedic timing on it. So I would, if you like this goofy kind of bullshit, I would definitely recommend that you go and check it out for yourself, and don't just take my recap and Brandon's recap of it. Definitely watch it. There's another funny thing was that they had, like, I think it was it Tony Chimmel, a picture of him, and then they have like one string that's connected to like the Burgess Meredith penguin from the Batman TV show, and then they've got another string going down to, it looks like the Colin Farrell penguin from the Batman. Like, he's like, they're trying to say, like, is this guy the penguin? Shit like that. Yeah, I don't know. There's other stuff too. I think Bruno Sammartino was up there somewhere. I couldn't be sure, but anyway, yeah.
I want to say I saw Nails up there too.
Oh no, it was
somebody in an orange jumpsuit.
It was what's his name? Larry D, I think.
Oh yeah, that's right, because of the callback to the who shot Johnny Bravo angle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was him. So, but yeah, he was dressed like Nails, so there you go. Anyway, all this is to say that, from all this, they narrow down Trey Miguel as a possible suspect, and they go and, they decide they're going to investigate him. So he's also on the board in the lower left-hand corner. So yeah, if you like this kind of, if you like this comedy shit, then check that out.
I think
here's oh, go ahead.
I think they might have dropped the first hint of who it might be of actually when it finally gets revealed.
Oh, okay. You want to tell now or tell later?
I think it's going to be Joe Hendry turning heel. Because you notice when he walked in, Dango asked him, like, hey, where'd you get that black eye? And they quickly changed the subject.
He's like, well, yeah, but the way, see, that's one of those things where I say you got to say it for yourself, because the way he's like, he said it like he was trying to defend a battered woman that didn't want to admit she was getting beaten up. He's like, somebody hit you, bro? Like, somebody hit you? Yeah. So, but yeah, you may be onto something there. So we'll stay tuned for that. All right, here's something that's comedic in a different way. It's Sami Callihan versus Diener. Except it's not Diener, it's Khan. It's and they beat him up first. So we do the old, we're gonna beat the shit out of you, and then the ref's gonna ask you if you want to start the match thing that they started doing a couple years ago, and I don't know why, but they do that. Labrat says we better get a shirt for Joe Hendry's flag. Dude, if he doesn't do that, if Joe Hendry doesn't make a Britt Baker shirt out of that, then anyway.
That would be a great rib. That'd be such a great rib.
Yeah. Even if you don't actually make the shirt, but if you just make a mock-up like you're about to sell the shirt and say, like, we couldn't sell this for whatever reasons, we had this ready to go. That would be enough. All right. So yeah, Sami Callihan versus Khan. Okay. They have, a match for a while, and then he ends up kicking him in the balls. And then, before anything else, before the match can have a finish, the ring fills up with yellow hoodies, and they beat the shit out of Sami again. And then he gets a bat in the face from Diener. So a little retribution on Sami for, what he did to Diener at whatever pay-per-view that was that I already forgot the name of.
Rebellion?
Yes, that. Sure. Or whatever. um, so yeah, that there it is. So this whole thing isn't over between these guys, but I don't know. What else can you really do? I mean, I understand that the design would not just let it go. On the other hand, you've already done, it seems like, every permutation of this that you could possibly do. And I don't know how much interest there still is to keep doing it. I mean, it seems like he fought these guys before he had to join them, after he joined them, like.
Well, at the same time, you got to look at it too. It's like, well, his whole thing is he infiltrated them and tried to destroy him from the inside out. Okay, well, how are they before he went in? How are they after he came out? They're in the same spot.
Yes, they've gone nowhere. It's a lateral move. This whole thing is just. I think they should just. If there was ever a time, because you know how many times in wrestling you say whatever happened to them doing this or that because they just drop it out of nowhere. I think of all the times you could do this would be this, and no one would really care that much. We could all just move on and pretend this shit never happened.
Like, Eric Young, what are you doing here? What are you talking about?
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't even know if they had to do that, but I just there's nowhere to go really. I don't think. Prove me wrong, Impact. I know obviously you're watching, taking notes, you're adjusting your show based on our recommendations. So my recommendation is fuck this shit. Let's see how they respond. All right. Now we get the interrogation of Trey Miguel, in which they, check his hair and make sure that he's not missing any of it on the top of his head. And more comedic hijinks. Like, again, I can't reenact this. Like, I'm not even going to try to recap what they're saying here. But it is, like, even though this is the kind of stuff I don't like in wrestling, I will admit that in a vacuum, what they're doing is funny because they're good performers. So, if I could say one thing about Trey Miguel that's good, it's that he's used to doing stuff like this ever since the Rascals and all the other stuff that they've been doing. So he's very versed in comedic trios in vignettes. So we know he can do this at least. Yeah. So just another comedy skit. Anything you'd like to add to this whole thing or comment?
No, I thought it was funny. I mean, you got the right guys for this angle and segment.
Agreed.
We got a shot. Like the awkwardness between Dango and Trey was just, again, you have to watch it.
Yeah, even if we reenact it exactly, it's still not as good as them. So, all right, we get a shot of Trinity's door. Okay, and then all right, now we've got another one of these things where it's Jimmy Jacobs presenting Nick Aldis in front of this backdrop. So we're like, he gets his own style of interview segment on these shows. No Gia, it's Jimmy. He gets his own interviewer. We never see Jimmy Jacobs on camera until I started mentioning him, by the way. And then now Nick Aldis has his own personal Jimmy Jacobs. And he basically is saying, like, just because he's back to be the Impact World Champion doesn't mean he has any intention of jumping the line. He's willing to work his way up from the bottom and whatever. That's basically what the gist of his promo. Then Kenny King walks in and he's like, hey, I was just walking by. And, he decided to say what he wanted to say. He questions the sincerity of what all this is saying. Like, are you here to make an impact, or are you here to wait at the back of the line? Like, what do you're talking out of both sides of your mouth is essentially what he's saying. And Aldis says, how about you and me have a match or whatever? And he's like, you don't just come in and get an audience with the king. You should understand that, right? It's like a monarchy, So good wordplay from Kenny King as usual.
Timely too.
Timely. We just had a coronation, in case anybody gives a shit about that, which apparently a lot of people do for some reason.
Yeah,
but,
didn't we like fight an entire war to get away from that?
that's ancient history now. It's literally ancient history. In wrestling terms, it was, 3 weeks ago is ancient history, but yeah. And I want to say hello to Jerome with an N joining us. He asked, how was the lights? And the light was good. It was good. Well, I'll get to one thing in a second here, but if they've done any bit of our advice, they may have decided that this was not the hill to die on in this war that they have between the Impact Attack and actual Impact. So, yeah. So anyway, yeah, like I said, I like this. I like Nick Aldis interviews. He's good. I like Kenny King. He's good. I even kind of like that he has his own setup, but it's almost like a heelish thing, but it's fine. It works. Don't even mind Jimmy Jacobs doing it. It's just a little something different. I'm fine with it. So, it helps to make him stand out. It's probably some creative input on Nick Aldis's part, because I know he's probably very hands-on and involved with whatever he's got to do on the show. And he should, because he hasn't, I've never looked at Nick Aldis and thought that there was something that was his idea and been like, that's a stupid idea. It's usually, works for him and whatever's going on as well. So, more Nick Aldis. And I'm not just saying that as a Legacy Subs customer. I'm just calling it like I see it. If you fuck up, Nick Aldis, I'm going to call you out. But he's good for now. Anything else to put a bow on this?
Nah, I think it's going to lead to him and King at Under Siege, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're leading to Alicia Edwards versus Jody Threat. Which, yeah, this is better that it's probably better that it's not on Under Siege, because goddamn. I'm not going to break down this entire match, but just to give you an example, like how the match starts. Okay. We do the thing where they have a face off and like Lish slaps Jody in the face, right? So the immediate answer from Jody is, oh, you just slapped me in the face? Shoulder tackle. Like, what?
Yeah, somebody like Jody, you slap a Jody Threat in the face, she's going to be beating the shit out of you.
Yes. If anything, there's a bunch of ways you could do this spot, none of which involve a shoulder tackle. For example, option one, you slap her eyes get big as she kind of sells the slap, and then you just run. Like, you run to the ropes, like, ref, and then she tries to, like, get you, and then, you can maybe even, or maybe you get through the ropes and, she tries to grab you by the hair or something like that, and then you snap her neck on the top rope, and then you could just go right into the heat from there. Like, immediately Jody's in trouble, a threat, if you will, threatened, and then, it can just be, almost like a jump start, but in a different way. That's one thing. Or you could do this. You slap Jody just punches you right in the mouth and you take a bump, and then you roll out. And then Jody's like, come on in here, you pussy, like whatever. You can actually work, working. It's called working.
Yep. And also too, the heel through the first strike. So it works.
Right. Exactly. And not only did the heel throw the first strike, but as the babyface, not only did you strike back, but you one-upped. You went from a slap to a closed fist punch, like, fuck you, that's what you're supposed to do. Retribution plus some. That's the idea. Like, okay, so that's two things right off the top of my head. How do you do this? And they did none of that. It was slap into shoulder tackle, which is a spot that you would never, ever see for good reason. And it was no good reason here. And then later on, she got the slap back, but it was like, nah, you already fucked up. You already tackled her. What's the difference? It's like, we don't need to see the slap. So yeah, like I said, there's several variations on how you could start a match with a heel slapping the babyface, and this was none of them. So it just went downhill from there. They just did a few spots, didn't really go together. Like I said, they're not working. They're just having their match. The match that they laid out was not particularly good. I just wrote Jody wins after some mediocre stuff, and that's what it was, basically.
Yeah, I felt Alicia should have worked more as a pest heel, like kind of like get her shots in, get out of the way. Get your shots in, get out of the way. Get her down, and then when she's down, get your shots. And starts getting back up, get your shots and get away, get her back down.
It's all right there if you know what you're doing. However, we get this. It's fine. Whatever. It doesn't matter. No one will ever remember it. Even if they had a good match, no one will ever remember it. It's buried in the middle of a random Impact episode, so I guess in the end it really doesn't matter. But those are the things, like whether you're in front of no cameras, whether you're taping for TV, whether you're on a pay-per-view, whether you're wrestling in front of 10 people in a barn somewhere, use those opportunities to practice things that will eventually make you money. Just because you're not making money with it now doesn't mean that you won't have an opportunity to be in front of people who will see you and be like, oh, she knows what she's doing. Like, you see these two, right? And you're like, yeah, this, if you look at Impact as a lower level company, you're going to watch these two have this match and be like, yeah, that figures. When you watch somebody like a Masha or a Diana and they work matches, and you see what they do, if you were an agent, you'd be like, okay, these two ladies know what's up, I might want to sign them to a contract. So that's what you have to think about when at any level of the business, whether you're just starting out, like think about what will impress a veteran whose job it is to scout talent. There are things that they look for that they don't see. Anybody can see somebody run a high spot or do an athletic move. Like, they'll see that kind of stuff all the time. They want to see if you know what to do with it. So if you're trying to move up, never miss an opportunity to work on that. But anyway.
There's one dude I knew who would get booked at a place just to test stuff out.
Yeah. And we're not talking about like doing a crazy move, right? Because you can practice the crazy move, on your own time with a crash pad, or, if you want to work something out before the show to see if you can do it, or things like that. You can get your reps in on those things and practice those moves. Like if you're like, man, I want to hit a crazy moonsault. So practice your crazy moonsault, with a crash pad or something, so that you can get the basic move down or whatever it is. But because you're not gonna get better at something by not doing it. So when it comes time to hit your money move, you want to be able to do it and not screw it up. You don't want to be Bad Bunny and break your neck, right? Or almost break your neck. So you got to practice it somewhere, but don't practice it at times where it's not going to do anything for you. That's basically it. But anyway, yeah, like I said, not the best match. And then we have Motor City Machine Guns with Gia and no music underneath. Sabin, I think, if I was hearing him correctly, because, I want to tune out. Goldberg's promos have never been like his strong suit, so I tend to tune out. But I think he was saying something about wanting to become the X Division champion for the 20th time or whatever it is, right? Was that what he was talking about?
Yep, 9 times. And he actually said 9 times.
He did. He counted them out, too, so he wouldn't lose his place. Because I'm sure, as a former football player, he's not the smartest. So he definitely had to count with his fingers to make sure he got all 9 in. And then Gia's like, well, what about you, Alex Shelley? And he's like, oh, yeah, well, sure, a lot of people say that you're the greatest wrestler to never win the world championship. So I think I'll just go do that. And she's like, what? What are you saying? It's like, I'm just going to win the world title real quick. Like he said, "Oh, I left something. I left my bag in the other room. Let me go grab it." Like he said it that casually. So okay, there you go. What do you think, world champion Alex Shelley?
There was a time where I thought he could have been a draw as a world champion. Not anymore.
Right. Really, a draw even, huh?
If he would have been given the opportunity.
Do you mean like a Sami Callihan draw or a real draw?
Well, I mean, like, there's a lot of comparisons to him and Jericho, like, back in the day. Like, I thought he could have been, like, if he would have had the opportunity to cultivate and build that, but that really happens. Of course, that could also kind of a lot of that falls on him as well. Because you got to remember, Jericho didn't take any shit. He pushed forward.
Yeah. Javi with the thumbs up, thumbs down there. Here's why Alex Shelley could not and cannot ever be a main event player. One simple reason. And this is I don't even know if it's I guess it's something you can work on, but he does not, his face does not emote. Like when he's in a match, he does not have facial expressions. He just has this same look on his face the entire time, which is, that's every Alex Shelley match, whether he's selling, whether he's fired up, whether he's whatever. It's his face never really changes, and he looks like a guy that's trying to remember stuff. So that's not a main event guy. Even besides all the other reasons why somebody could say he's not a main event guy. Because there's guys that have, been smaller than him, less athletic than him, less ripped than him. There's been plenty of guys that were main event guys, that Alex Shelley may have tangible points over, but he just doesn't have those facial expressions. So there you go. Yeah. Mike Martin says no charisma. It's not even necessarily no charisma, but it's just that his face won't show his charisma, which you need. You need that moneymaker. He's better. I guess watching him now, he has more of it than he did back in those days, like the days that he's talking about where he might have been a world champion. But I still see it from time to time. Anyway, no point. Speaking of no point, part 2 of Frankie Kazarian with Gia and music underneath. I wrote down really nothing because he said things and none of it mattered. It was just very he glossed over entire chunks of his fucking career.
Right. It's like the whole, the juicy thing that everybody wanted to hear from this part 2 was, okay, what exactly led to your departure from AEW? And it's kind of just, yeah, kind of, just things kind of were going there where they decided, I kind of want to bet on myself.
Yeah. If, did he even say AEW? The words AEW? The letters? Did he even say it?
That is a good question. I know he said get on the ground floor of something.
Right. So he's vague about what he's talking about, and then he glosses over the entire thing.
Which makes me wonder if Scott D'Amore's worried about harming a potential relationship with them or potential legal ramifications, because we all know how quick Tony has to try to get litigious.
I don't think he should have to worry about that. I mean, it's only helping AEW. Certainly wouldn't hurt. He's just saying, I was there, It's like, he was. We can all see it. But he, and I don't think in either part 1 or part 2 of this, did he really even talk about the fact that he was in WWE? I forgot if he said that in part 1. Because he was. I mean, if you weren't watching Velocity, you didn't see him. But he was there. He was there. So I don't remember if he covered that part either. So he's
I don't think they did.
Yeah, so if you're not going to actually get in depth and talk about some of this history, then why are we doing a sit down piece where you're spotlighting this like an interview what's the point of this if you're not going to get into those nitty gritty details? We don't need just more generic guys cutting promos or just saying vague shit. I don't know.
Right. This should have been like a 60-minute style interview.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Buckshot Kid says, it's like they have nothing for Frankie, so they gave him that. Well, but if you're Frankie, you should come up with something for that. Like, even if they have nothing for you, you get something for yourself. They actually sit you down and you think they're going to be like, okay, Frankie Kazarian, we know that you chose to come here and sign with us and be like a featured player because you want to bet on yourself, which is a big phrase these days for people that are working in companies that are less necessarily popular than other companies. They say you're betting on yourself. And I don't want to disparage that because, like I said, people have different priorities, and people need to and fans need to remember that just because the WWE is a big company or AEW is a big company doesn't mean you can't go there and be miserable every day. So, it's your happiness is just as important. If you're functionally doing the same thing, if you're showing up at a building with a gym bag and then wrestling for anywhere to 5 to 20 minutes, it's the same whether you're in WWE or Impact or whatever. The only difference is the size of the crowd and how the cameras are going to make you look. Other than that, for you, it's the exact same. So it's better to be somewhere where you're happy and still making some money. Of course, you'd always ideally like to make more, but sometimes you can't put a price on comfort and happiness. So I'll say that about that. Yeah, as far as... I don't know. I just feel like this is one of those opportunities where you come from AEW and you sign with Impact. If they sit you down and say, hey, we got nothing for you creatively, so we're going to do these interviews and also read off this piece of paper and don't contribute any ideas, I don't really think they do that to Kaz. So I'm sure he had some input, and if this is the best that he's got, then I don't need to see a part 3. We can just cut this off right now.
Yeah, this was something they could have done. I don't know. It could have been much more special other than just like a really vague recap of Frankie Kazarian's career.
Right.
Like, why no mention of his wife who was, that he basically met there.
Don't talk about your wife, Frankie. All right, and action. It's like last minute directions.
Yeah, like basically Impact Wrestling essentially gave him his family.
Right. Yeah, we're not talking about that. We're just glossing over it again. So whatever. Yeah, I don't know. And to Buckshot Kid's point, he's not bumping in the ring, he's getting paid. Well, he is bumping in the ring. It's just they sit down and tape all these interviews and spread that out. And then his one match that he's going to have at the set of tapings, it's the same one match that everybody's going to have. Tonight, Moose had his one match that he's going to have all month, It's like, but he's not getting a career retrospective interview either. So, just one of those things. All right. So anyway, speaking of one of those things, we get the Champagne Army versus PCO. And is PCO going to come out by himself? No, baby. He's not. We're going to get Heath and Rhino are going to back him up. I just wrote down this sucked and it was stupid. Like, this match sucked. They did a bunch of stupid shit in this match that everybody should know better. Like, for example, so Champagne Singh does the spot that you do on like house shows when you're doing this, rich guy gimmick, I guess, where you're like, so PCO's in the ring and he's supposed to be, some kind of a crazy monster, right? I mean, I guess we all laugh at him and shake our head at what he's doing, but in the world they've created, this is a guy that came back from a literal burial, all these things, right? And he can't be killed. He's you know what I mean? And this guy gets in the ring and starts like, he immediately turns his back to PCO and then starts like appealing to the people and doing a bunch of shtick. So he's basically saying, this guy's not a threat. And then he turns around and walks into whatever, which is like, no, your spot here is to be selling the fact that you're afraid to be in this ring right now. Otherwise, why, he treats the whole thing like a joke. It's the complete wrong way to act, even for a comedy character. The timing of it is wrong. It's bad. So, and then they just, obviously they keep doing a bunch of dumb shit, PCO does that thing where he does like the senton on the apron, and it's Singh again, and Singh takes this, but because of what the scripted match is, he, he's up and double and triple teaming PCO like within 30 seconds, I think, like within a minute, his partners have already pushed him back in the ring, and they're cooperating with him. So he's not even selling this big ass, crazy bump, right? So I don't know, fuck it. PCO hits the PCO salt on Singh. I don't even know if anybody else got in this match. Did Macklin even tag in? I don't even remember.
Yeah, he did. He was the legal guy going into the hot tag.
Okay. So
I thought
even that they fucked up, because these guys shouldn't even. Macklin should be trying to avoid touching PCO as long as he can.
Right, and plus it just felt weird having the champ be the guy tagging out and during the hot tag.
Yeah,
and that just didn't feel right. I don't know why.
You do know why. You know why.
Yeah. I will have to admit, I did like the part at the end with Heath grabbing all the money that fell on the ground. He's got kids. He's
got kids. Yeah, that's the other thing. Once it's too late, Singh tries to bribe PCO with money. Like, okay. Yeah. After you've had the whole match, you want to try now.
Right. That's usually the spot you open the match with.
Right. No, instead he was like, I got this. I don't care.
Like, do you ever see Godfather offer the hose as the match is coming to the end?
Yeah, exactly. Wait, I'm about to lose. Let me give him the hose. Yeah. That would add a whole new dimension to the character. All right. Anything else to bury this match with?
Nah, this. Whew. Yeah.
There's no point. There's no point in us burying it. It's just gonna walk back from the desert with dirt in its mouth anyway. So.
All the way from Vegas to Chicago.
That's it. It's a long walk. All right. Next, we get witches making candles. They're gonna open their own candle business to compete with Bed Bath and Beyond and other things. Like, I don't know. I got nothing to say.
Or maybe they intend to resurrect it and they're gone in necromancy.
Ooh. Yeah, probably not. All right, the Death Dolls meet with Father James Mitchell. So, maybe I was wrong last week when we were talking, and when Crazy Steve said, "You know what you got to do," this actually was what they had to do, and I just misinterpreted the whole thing. So, here he is, and they're saying like, hey, I want to get to the undead realm, and he's like, well, you got to do something for me, but I don't know what that is yet. And she's like, I ain't gonna make no open-ended deals with you. And he's like, well, it's either come with me now, or who knows how long that you'll have to wait before you get another chance. I'm paraphrasing all this because it's really much more gross and weird than I'm making it sound.
Is there something about minotaurs and sirens that he has to take care as to service or something like that? Yeah,
it's definitely creepy and gross. And with James Mitchell, it might be a shoot. So. I think so anyway, yeah, so Rosemary reluctantly agrees, but Jessica can't go with her, and she leaves Jessica with an hourglass, says, when this runs out I'll be back, and she takes her meat cleaver in there with her.
Yeah, it's like don't worry, we're armed.
Yeah, we're going in armed. All right, so here we go, and more teleporting and magic, which, as you all know, is my favorite thing. Opening random closet doors into other dimensions. Now that's pro wrestling.
They still managed to make it look like something out of a Disney movie. or a Disney program or something.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. Rosemary had a cleaver for what? For cleaving. Duh. Obviously, she's going to cleave something. The last time we saw the Undead Realm, there were a lot of trees. So maybe she should have brought an axe, but maybe there wasn't like a safety fire axe handy, so she just had to grab a cleaver from the kitchen. I don't know. I don't know what you want me to say.
Nah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next is Octopus versus Speedball Part 4 or 5 if you count their triple threat with Trey. Let's see. Jonathan Gresham is chewing gum, which I also love. I love it about as much as I love teleporting and Undead Realms. Also, John starts glistening at about 4 minutes this time, so this is this is getting a little more concerning, but yeah. So these guys do what they do, you know, for the most part. If you don't watch every wrestling in the world, you're probably going to see some things in this match that you haven't seen before or you haven't seen in a long time. I know there's some stuff I rarely see that they like to do. So it was interesting from that aspect of it. It's good how they can go from just grappling to striking to high spots. You know, they're very well versed in all of it. So it's like slightly unique, especially on a show where you've seen have we even seen a good match to this point? Let me go back. The tag match was okay, but it wasn't anything special. The Sammy versus Diener was just a gimmick, you know, to further the angle. It wasn't really much of a match. Alicia versus Jody Threat was bad. The 6-man was bad. So like, this is probably like the first like really interesting match that we saw. And the Octopus wins with the Octopus. So very fitting. So I prefer this compared to everything else on the show, and even as a standalone match, like it was fine. I liked it enough. I'll give it a thumbs up. I'll give it a hesitant thumbs up. What about you, Brandon? What'd you think of this whole thing? Do you think it really, are you getting interested in the rivalry the longer it goes on, or are you kind of tapping out and ready for it to be over?
I might be tapping out after this one because to me, it felt like this should have been a match where they finally they throw the sportsmanship out the window, they throw the respect out the window, and just come to blows and want to beat the shit out of each other. And it kind of felt like they were kind of building towards that. 'Cause there was points in the beginning where they were like evenly matched, and you could see like the story of the frustration between them building. Where it's like, okay, when is it finally going to boil over? And they just started just throwing haymakers at each other.
Right. Well, it never really did. But they're trying to keep these two guys as, you know, I guess non-heels. I don't want to say necessarily baby faces, but definitely not trying to make villains out of them. So,
And there's still a way you can do that where you can have two guys who are just frustrated that one cannot get one up over the other, and it just eventually boils over and they explode.
Right. Well, to your point, with this win, Gresham does get one up over on him. So now I think the record stands again. If you're not counting that, what you call it, the triple threat, then I think Gresham's up by 1. Labrat says the name like Speedball going to AEW would be dangerous. Yeah, 9 days from tonight. So yeah, so with a friendly sort of resolution and handshake at the end of this, I guess it's just that Jonathan Gresham won the battle and the war, and that's it. There's nothing else to do. Because this is not for anything. It's not for a contendership. They both had their shot at Trey Miguel, and neither one of them won it. So it's kind of like, all right, well, if you're not going to put a stake on this, then Jonathan Gresham won. Let's move on.
Yep, pretty much.
All right.
When this really, you could have actually built this towards another one of those pit fight matches.
Yeah. 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 See, so and you know, for Buckshot Kid and Labrador, I was saying tag team champs, midget tag team, whatever. But that's the thing. Like, if they were dead even, maybe you could say that. Unless I'm just getting my math wrong, and I thought Gresham's ahead, so they should have evened it up. If that's the case, right? If they wanted to go a tag team route. And they've already done the tag team thing, you know, sort of, even though it was for a specific, you know, angle, but I don't know, man. Yeah. And Liz is also pointing out, that, Speedball's going to be out because he's going to this Best of Super Juniors tournament, which is going to take all month in New Japan. So he's not going to be around in any case. Maybe that's why they decided to just like, all right, let's put a bow on it with this and send him off to Japan. I guess. I don't know. Doesn't matter. We'll see. Labrador's telling me to make this make sense. I can't. I can't do it. I can't do it all. Next is Sammy Callahan asking Rich Swann for help. Can't do it alone. He needs Rich Swann's help.
And how long has it been since we've seen Rich Swann on the show?
It's been a little bit. I mean, now that his best friend Josh Alexander is off, you know, rehabbing, there's been no need for a Rich Swann. Or has there? I don't know. Well, what do you think of this? What do you think of Sammy Callahan, you know, asking Swann for help, Swann giving him a lecture about how he always gets himself into these situations, and then he's saying like, are you going to help me or not? And then just walks away before Rich Swann can answer.
I mean, at the very least, it made sense with their story and character. Where Callahan's just like, well, he just completely ignores all of his valid points and goes, "Are you going to help me or not?"
And then walks away without an answer. You going to help me or not? Just text me the answer later. Okay, fine. You know, whatever. All right, so they show that earlier during the break, Burt Macklin wants Scott D'Amore to do something about something. I don't remember what his complaint was. I forget.
During the match, Rhino speared him on the outside. He wants something to do something about that. Like that's just here. They're booking Macklin like a little bitch. I'm sorry. He looks like a bitch.
You hear that, Macklin? A bitch.
And it's the booking.
It's the booking.
Like, why is a guy like Macklin complaining to management about a guy spearing him on the outside during the middle of a match?
Well, they will tell you because he's a heel.
I need a little bit more than that. Just because you're a heel does. I'm sorry. I need more of a reason for why somebody would do that. Especially a guy like Macklin, who is supposed to have been in fucking Iraq.
That's right. It's hot over there. I don't know. I think okay, so the logic here, if you're doing a traditional, if you're looking at it from traditional heel psychology, a lot of what makes heels is the fact that people find them to be impressive in some fashion, whether it's athletically, skill-wise, size, whatever it is, and the fact that they shouldn't have to do the things that they do, but they do it anyway. So you look at Macklin, he's, like you said, a veteran. He's a rugged type of guy. He's always talking about military, and he's got this theme of being tough and a badass and all this other stuff. So you're like, okay. So when you see him complaining about shit that shouldn't even be complaining about, that's where the heat comes from. He's like, what are you complaining about? It's literally what you're saying. It's almost like and I'm not saying this is the case, but just using it as an example, it's like you're getting worked by Macklin. Like, this is the reaction they expect you to have. Hey, you're supposed to be tough. Why are you acting like this? That is the heat. That's exactly the heat. That's entirely the psychology behind chicken shit heel heat. The issue comes in where, because if Steve Macklin is a badass, why are you a heel? What's not to like? Wow, here's a tough guy and he's the champion. Why don't I like him? He's not giving me a reason not to like him. So the reason is because he's a little bitch. That's why I don't like him.
What about my counter to that is, what about Frieza? He was a villain that everybody was afraid of him because of the damage and how dangerous he was. But he used underhanded tactics. He had no problem killing women and children. Basically, what made him just a heel was how ruthless and what a monster he was.
Well, Japan books heels different. It's my counter to that. I mean, I'm not saying that Macklin can't be that, but at least in the pro wrestling arena, you don't have the opportunity to kill women and children, so he can't do that.
Well, I mean, like that, like professional wrestling level of heinousness.
Right. I'm just making a joke, but yeah, of course you could still do that, but I'm just saying, I'm not saying I don't agree. I'm just saying that's where the psychology comes from. So it's one way to do it. Is it the right thing to do with this particular person? Probably not. I don't know. It seems like, if I remember correctly, it seems like Macklin doesn't really use a lot of underhanded tactics within the match, at least not overly. Most of the matches he either wins or loses clean. Just, So he's not really taking advantage of that Frieza aspect like you're suggesting. So maybe if he did some more of that, it would be different. But they're going with this instead. You see this all the time, and it's classic psychology, but I think it applies to some characters better than others.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, it's up to them to worry about that. I don't even know at what level Steve Macklin thinks about this stuff. Like, I'm not sure if he goes home and thinks, I don't know if Impact's using me right, or if these are his ideas, or I don't know, like, if he just shows up and like, hey, I'm just here to work. I don't know to what degree he gets involved in his own stuff. So I can't say for sure. I can't put the blame on him or the company fully, but I can just tell you that that's probably what whoever's thinking that's booking this is thinking. They're like, all right, let's have him do the little bitch heat instead of the, tough guy that doesn't need to cheat but does it anyway heat. I don't know. But anyway, Scott D'Amore books him in a match with Rhino for his troubles. So that's what he's going to do about it, as far as like giving him some retribution for what he's complaining about. And this was the one instance of the lighting, because they're shining a green light on the door that's in the background, but the light is kind of obscured, so it kind of just makes it look like the door is green, but it's definitely artificial light. So they snuck one light in just to mess with me. They're like, here's Moose, but you get no entrance, and here's a light on the door. So you take the compromises where you can. I'll accept this. I'll accept that you'd rather this door have been green for this scene instead of whatever color it was, probably brown or something. And you prefer green. Okay, fine. I'll deal with that. It's acceptable. So yeah, there you go. And now we get to the main event, which is Trinity. Here's Trinity. And the announcers are really hyping this. The reaction from Tom and Matt, right? Is his name Matt?
Yeah,
I forget.
yeah, Ray
Matthew. Okay. Yeah, the reaction from these guys couldn't have been much more energetic if Stone Cold Steve Austin walked through that door. Like, they really were hyping it up. And they're both probably friends of hers because they both work with her, so they know her, and they're probably very happy that she's there. And, they're trying to make this like a big deal for her. And it is. And they do.
And they should.
Yeah. And there you go. And you can get a shirt at shopimpact.com. So, if you feel like it's a big deal too, go get you a t-shirt. So she's here, and the first thing I'll say about her is, while she's lovely as usual, I felt like her outfit was not really flattering. It kind of made her look like a box. Like the top part was like, it wasn't as tight and form fitting or whatever. Like it kind of made her look boxy, and she had a skirt. So it just she kind of looked like a refrigerator box in there a little bit.
Yeah, like very like futuristic type of attire.
Yeah. Not a great outfit, but she did basically kind of have her similar entrance with the black lighting and the neon stuff. So she, she's not really losing anything in the presentation here. Yeah, just maybe not the best outfit for the debut, I don't think. But that's the thing, like, for something like this, I'm sure she had this specially made, right? And what do we talk about? Like, I've mentioned this several times. Like, when you get new gear made, a lot of times you don't have a chance to realize it doesn't fit quite right before you have to go out there. Because I see so many people that have, like, brand new gear, and they're, like, adjusting it, like, during the match because they didn't, It's one thing to try it on in the mirror. It's another thing to be out there in the ring and actually having a match. And then you're like, oh, shit, these pants are too loose. Like Shayna Baszler would be constantly pulling up her pants, and just for an example, and other things like that. So
that was one of the reasons why whenever we had gear made, they'd have us like actually train and like wear it during training sessions so we get used to it.
Exactly. But then you also don't want to mess up your new gear, so you can see how it's always an issue, right? Like
balancing act.
Yes, you just have to find the best gear you ever made and tell somebody, some seamstress, like, or seamster, whatever, it's 2023. You just tell them, hey, make exactly this, but I need it this color now, or something. You know what I mean? Like, I guess. I don't know what it is, but whatever, who cares? She's not having a match. All she's doing is standing out there. So she's out there. She says that Impact is the most storied women's division of all time, and she wants a piece of it, which is, okay, that was good reason. She name drops a bunch of people like Awesome Kong, Gail Kim, whatever. And she also says current people like Deanna and Jordan. And then Deanna comes out. She says, if you want to make history, this is the place to be. But you just walked into the new age of the virtuosa. And she says, and this was an interesting line. It was a little clumsy because I know they were trying to figure out how can we get this in. And I don't know if this worked, but she tried to make it work. But it was... She said, when you step in the ring with Deonna Purrazzo, that's not something you can just walk out on. So she's making a reference to her leaving the WWE. And, Trinity has a much better comeback when she says, when you step in the ring with me, you're going to wish you got fired again. So we're again using real world shit that the people probably don't know about. But, if you do know, if you know, you know. So there's that. And then before it can get too heated, go ahead, Brandon.
I'd be very surprised if people watching this show didn't know those stories.
Right. Well, you got to be a special kind of fan to watch Impact, right? Like, dude, I wonder. Okay, so speaking of that, sidebar. Do you think how many old people, right? Do you think that just watch Access TV? Maybe they're watching like a concert or something. Maybe they're watching some concert, and then Impact comes on, and they're just like, "Oh, wrestling, I like that." And they watch Impact Wrestling, and then they have no idea what's going on in the entire rest of the world of wrestling. Like, this is the only wrestling they know, and just because it comes on the channel they like to watch, they're like, "Oh, okay, all right, I see. I don't know what these ladies are talking about, but they seem pretty fired up." Like how many people in the world do you think that's the situation?
Man, it'd have to be a minuscule number.
Yeah, but they must exist, right? It's a non-zero number, right?
It's bigger than zero, yes.
Bigger than zero. All right. So Anyway, before it gets too heated, Jordan Grace interrupts and she says, basically like, hey, if you want to come back and challenge Deanna, that's great. But if you want to be the champion, you got to get in line because I'm taking that title. So you're going to need to fight me for that. So whatever. And then Trinity says, whoever's the champ after Under Siege, let's dance. Which is a reference to her dancing because she dances. And that's it. There's your big debut. So what do you think of the big debut?
I'm not going to lie. Like, listening to that promo, it felt like I was pulled. Again, it could also have been the acoustics in the building too, but it felt like I got pulled back and was having flashbacks to like all the like just indie promos, generic indie promos I've heard about. I'm here. I'm going to make an impact. I'm going to win the belt. I respect the people that have come here. Just the generic baby face, here I am promo.
Yes. That's it.
And it also seemed like there was a like some dead air and a miscue after Deanna threw out the line about walking out, and it felt a little awkward there, and it seemed like Trinity had at least a little bit of wherewithal to because it seemed like she kind of stumbled at that line out there about getting fired.
That's interesting because it's a taped show. So if this is the most that they could do with their editing, maybe it was really even more awkward and worse live.
But at least it felt like she knew there was dead air and tried to cover it.
Yeah.
Or at least it was going a little long and she had to kind of at least keep something going before they hit Jordan's music.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't be Impact without some audio cues and miscues and some technical difficulties and other stuff, right? It's just what we're going to get. And maybe that had something to do with the canned commentary at the beginning. Like perhaps they had, like maybe they were doing live commentary and recording it and they lost it all. So they had to go do a VO, just for that match or several matches or something. Like maybe that happened. It's Impact, so you could believe it, right?
Again, this is all speculation. We don't know.
That's right. So yeah. Any other thoughts on, so it was generic, like you said, but I don't know what else you can really do for a character that's not, like we said at the beginning, it's not like she's known for pipe bombs or promos at all. So it's not like saying live mic is going to be some kind of a weird, like, oh, I can't wait to see what's going to happen. Because what are we supposed to think would happen? We're supposed to think that she's just going to come in and do the standard promo and, but you can't do much more than that for an introduction. I mean, you're not going to come in and get a personal angle with any of these women she's never really been in the ring with or had a issue with. So you kind of have to, especially when you're hyping it up as a main event of your show. Like if you're telling people that your main event is somebody coming out and talking, then I mean, they kind of have to do that generic address at the beginning, right?
Right. And why don't you go off the show with action too? Where was some heels come out and try to counter it? Where was Masha?
We don't know. Now, however, I am in that one aspect, I am good with it because there's too much action in wrestling. I know that sounds like a stupid thing to say, but they're always trying to hotshot everything and give you the violence for free and then want you to watch it and pay for it later. Like, especially if you watch AEW, like they're constantly guys getting in fights all the time and then they just have a match. And it's like, I don't want to see, I already seen you guys fight. I don't want to see you guys wrestle. You're giving away too much. So I like the fact that these women just build the anticipation verbally, even though, like the verbiage wasn't the most fiery, but at least they got a couple of zingers in there, some shoot lines or whatever. So I'd much rather save the action for the scheduled action. There's just, God, there's so much like outside the ring brawls and bullshit, and it's tiring, especially if you watch all the programming across all the companies like I do. You see it everywhere, and they're killing the business. So it's refreshing if people can do a promo and not get into a fight. Also, especially in Impact, right, Brandon, that if they do have some action, it's going to turn into a phony wrestling action where it's not going to be a fist fight. They're going to start Irish whipping each other and shit like that and doing spots and wrestling moves, right? So maybe it's better to avoid all that. And furthermore, with that bad ring gear, I don't want to take a chance of any wardrobe malfunctions or anything else trying to happen. So for Trinity's Impact debut, through no fault of her own, I will give her a C+. Because you really just did a middle of the road thing. But at least they didn't mess anything up too bad. So, C+, if I'm being nice. Personally, I like Trinity. I think she's had a lot to deal with. Not only all the bullshit that goes on where at her former job that she had to deal with that we don't even know about, but I'm sure was there because anybody that's been involved in that system, even peripherally, like I was, hears about all these things and know about all these things. So I'm happy that she's out of there and she's doing good for herself, but also just the fact that she seems like a really nice person in terms of, she was the only person on Total Divas that I didn't want to drive an ice pick through their skull. And she seemed like the voice of reason. And she also has to put up with her fuck up of a husband who just keeps getting DUIs and everything like that.
Hey, if Jay ends up turning babyface, he can always go to AEW and team with Jeff Hardy, or Jimmy can.
Yeah, Jimmy. It's Jimmy. Jay's the good one. Jay's the good one. Jimmy's the husband. Let's make sure everybody knows that. Yeah, poor Jay, and I wonder how close Jay and Trinity have become as a family, having to deal with their, their guilt by association, heat by association. Like, these two are innocent and don't really do anything or cause any problems, but this fucking guy, and I guess he hasn't had an incident in a while, so good for him. I hope he stays on the wagon and continues to be involved in these main event storylines and do well for himself. I don't want to, totally shit on Jimmy, or John as his real name is, but, at the same time, you did drive drunk knowingly several times, so fuck you to a certain degree. But yeah, so I think what I'm trying to say is C+. And I hope you give us a little bit higher than a C+ for our show tonight on the Impact Attack. I think we had a nice show, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you like to continue to enjoy more things from us, where can they find you, Brandon?
You can find me on Twitter at Transarchistia, as well as on Twitch at Miss Tia the Transarchist. And of course, every Monday night here on the Impact Attack on Hami Media Group's YouTube channel. Whoop whoop.
All right. How are those drunken high raids going?
They are going.
Woo! They're going like Jimmy Uso in a car in Florida. Oh man. Yeah. Check that, guys. Check that out on Twitch, man. It's a party. Unfortunately, those are always during hours in which I'm unavailable because I love to stop in, but I'm just never able to. The first chance I get, I'm gonna check in and see what it's all about. Be sure of that. So yeah, there you go. That's where you can find Brandon. For me, you can find me. God, where can't you find me? You can find me at Opinion Haver on all your favorite social media platforms. That's for one. So if you, for some reason, haven't followed me by now, go ahead. It's not too late. There's no moratorium on following me. And if you're on Hami Media Group, channelattitude.com, whatever, you're probably very familiar with me from not only the Impact Attack, but from the Next Level Wrestling Review with Big Ray Hernandez every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. You've probably seen me on the Monday Locker Room recently with Ben Hameen. You've probably seen me on you probably very recently seen me on a episode of what I record, the Rampage Uncaged. Jimmy T and I did a Rampage Uncaged that was just pre-recorded, but that's available on channelattitude.com. You're probably going to want to check that out because it was a good conversation. So even if you're not an AEW fan and you're a Channel Attitude subscriber, go check that one out. And also, speaking of the PWC, you might want to check out the Monday Machismo Thursday edition, which I was recently on with Jimmy T as well. So it's always a fun time talking to Jimmy. And then you probably, maybe you see me on Piers Austin Shooting the Shit Uncensored. That episode is now available on YouTube or any of your favorite podcasting listening platforms. So check out Piers Austin, check out all that stuff, and check out we did about an hour and a half interview. And so if you just can't get enough vet, that's another place that you can get some more vet content. We also had a great conversation there. And you're going to want to check out all the stuff that Piers Austin is doing because he's doing a great job over there down under. So, yeah, you see me working with a lot of Australian guys. You know, that's kind of a thing. Pierce and Jimmy. What else is going on? Wrestling with Rip Rogers every Friday at noon, except when it's not, which it usually isn't. So that's an ongoing rib. You never know when I might pop in, so be aware of that at any time. There's a danger of Ed doing a run-in on Wrestling with Rip Rogers Q&A, so check that out. You also got to check out Stevie Richards, because Stevie Richards is doing stuff. He's putting up videos. He's showing his road to recovery. I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen by now. He did the from how it was to how it's going type thing, where he's showing like his evolution from being in the hospital bed to using the walker to using the crutches to using the sand dune stepper, and then he finishes off the video with him running on the fucking beach. Sun on the beach, Stevie Richards. Yeah, dude, such a great story. So happy for Stevie. Still putting out good content, still reviewing leg press attachments, you know, just doing stuff, working out, just going back to life as normal, reacclimating. The Big Fitness Show is back, so check out the Big Fitness Show, or the most recent episode is talking about supplements. So if you're ever curious to know more about supplements, they end up talking about it for a good while, and there's something everybody can learn from that. So Stevie Richards all the way. And I think that's just about everything I have to put over. So, in saying that, for Brandon, I'm the vet, and I don't have a sign-off line.